I
You're the
will,
vice
yeah.
chair.
I can go ahead and do that. So Maria's not joining us either?
No, Maria won't be here this evening. She had something else. So yeah, I'll
Okay,
go through that. I talked to her a little bit about the list, and we tried to organize a little bit so it's easier to go through it and kind of
Okay.
make some places here for us. So we'll try to facilitate that so we can get some consensus and some thoughts on what you guys want to do.
okay, great. So, I'm filling in for Chairman Knaddison and approve the agenda and want to move on to call of order. Present for this meeting on May 12th, 2022 is Member Heller, Vice Chair Lewis, Member Diedrich, and then Mayor Sierra has also joined us. Thank you, welcome. And then from Public Works, we also have Tim Hoos. So next, we're going to move on to recognition of public comment. I'm not sure if anyone else got any feedback from the public, but I didn't. So I don't think we have anything for that. And moving on to the approval of minutes. If hopefully everyone had a chance to read through them. For or against, Member Diedrich?
I motion or move to approve the minutes as written, as provided.
Okay.
I will second that.
All right. Great. Motion approved. So now
Member Lewis,
yes.
sorry to interrupt. I'm gonna go ahead and take a vote.
Okay.
I believe we do not need quorum right now. We might need another member, I believe. Because currently we only have
3.
3. And I believe minimum will be 4.
Okay.
Tim, is that correct?
It was the 3 out of the 5. Is that, do we need the 4, the alternate?
Yeah, we need majority. So
Okay.
would that be, I believe it will be 4.
Okay. So we don't have the alternate here, I guess, huh?
We do. Member
Okay,
Heller
yeah.
is here.
So who is the other alternate? Do we have another alternate? Just one.
Are we only missing, was there only 4 people plus an alternate? I was trying to look at the email.
I think there is.
Neil
Sure.
and Greg?
Yeah, there's the 2 missing, yeah.
Yeah, so we have 5 regular members and an alternate, and currently we
6.
only have, right, but we don't
Oh.
count the alternate as a regular member.
Well,
Okay.
that's right, yeah, the alternate is, yeah. You gotta have 3 of the regular members is what it is.
Are we able to?
Is that right? Are you sure? Because she serves as a member in lieu of third member not being here, so that's 3 out of 5 members. So
Can you look at the bylaws real quick, Michelle?
Sure.
So we're not doing anything that we shouldn't be.
we could still have a discussion, like a non-voting. We do have everybody here with some time put aside. It's a public meeting since there are several members and the topics of discussion still, but it could be an unofficial, more informational meeting. So whatever we see in the bylaws, we can still move forward. Well,
I agree. Yeah, we definitely want to get your feedback on the projects and stuff. We need to get that so we can let city council know what your priorities want, what you recommend for priorities. So.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. So we can circle back based on the bylaws of the quorum and approval of minutes. So as an informal, just can we want to move on to new business, I think. First up is the capital project prioritization discussion.
Yeah, so I can see if I can share my screen here. Joe, get the revised document there. I tried to categorize them by tiers and stuff, so it's a little bit easier to go through them there and see what y'all think. But let me see if I can share my screen and get the the revised one up there. Let's see, is
Yep,
that working?
yeah,
Okay. All right, so yeah, so I colored them in the different tiers here, so it's a little bit easier to see the different tiers and all the, I categorized, and these are all the transportation and traffic projects that are in the recommended project list, so we can look through these and see what kind of priorities you guys want to put on these different ones. But first thing I thought we might do is if you haven't had a chance to look through these yet, is there any of the tier 2 and tier 3 stuff that you think should maybe be a tier 1 project? We wanted to start with that and see if we kind of get consensus on what the tier 1 projects should be, and then maybe prioritize those tier 1s here to get things started. Scroll all the way down to show all the tier 2 and 3 here, but these are the tier 2 and tier 3 ranked projects anyways that we had. If there's any of these you think should be ranked higher, we can put them into the tier 1 category to discuss more. Or if there's any questions about any of the projects, you want to know what the project entails, I can fill you in on that as well if there's any question on that.
Just one question. Just how come some have a dollar associated, others don't?
So the ones with the dollar associated is the recommended funding for 2023. So those are
Okay.
the ones that are a little higher priority there. We're recommending spend money on those next year to get things moving on those. So the ones that don't have funding are recommended in 2024 and beyond. That's why
I
a lot
see.
of those are tier 2 and tier 3, because they're definitely projects that are out there, but just not as high a priority as the staff thought they needed to be. So this has just got the next year's funding on it, or proposed funding.
The second, let's see. Oh, you know what? I was looking at your. Street lights. Okay. The top one on there, street lights and furniture repair replacement, and traffic calming, all of that stuff sort of lumped together. I'm kind of curious with that one. Is that the safe route to school? Or let's see, traffic calming and safe routes to school is separate from streetlights and furniture replacement. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, those kind of run together, but those are two separate projects. The streetlights and furniture repair replacement is for along Broadway for that furniture and things, and then the neighborhood traffic calming and safe route to school. That's a more of the grant matching funding that we can use to possibly match any safe route to school grants we might be able to apply for. We wanted to have some funding there for that, so those are two different projects there.
Okay, that was going to be one of my next questions was, are there anything, especially the budgeted items on the tier 2 that do have that grant funding, or, you know, I know we've gotten those safe routes to school and other grants like that in the past. So, you know, if there's anything that might fall into that sort of category, I would want to, you know, try and see if we can get the match on that or those grants, because that'll, you know, multiply what we can do. Out of those 4 items on there, do any of those fall into that category?
We don't have any identified right now, any applications we're looking at, but we do want to have, we'd like to have that reserved. If an opportunity does come up, it's nice to have a little bit of budget there to know we can match the funding there, because you're right, if we can get grant funding, that multiplies our spending power there. So those are important to have those placeholders there if we do have a application that becomes available that we think we can get some funding for.
Okay, and I guess the other side of that question is the amount that's in the budget right here. Is that dependent on those grants, or is that just what the budget is that we have to spend on that, or what we think it's going to cost?
That's kind of the estimate of what we think we would need to match any kind of grant. Usually those grants are around 250 to 300,000. So that's about a 20% match or so. There is what we put in there for that, just so we have enough to match the city share if we were to get the grant.
Okay, and if we do budget for that and we don't end up meeting it, is that something that we have to remit at the end of the year as part of the budget, or is that something that can be carried over for another year?
So it does carry over in the public improvement fund. That does carry over each year. So it does build. If we don't spend it, it will carry into the following year.
Okay.
Is this document linked somewhere? I couldn't find it in what Michelle sent out, but maybe I'm missing it on a tab.
Yeah, it's online in the online meeting agenda. It's in there. You should be able to pull up the link there on the meeting on the calendar there.
Are there any, I'm looking at traffic signal replacement and, well, specifically that one. Is there an urgent need? Is there a safety issue with some of those that we need to replace something because we've been having issues and it's failing with those traffic signals?
So we do have a couple of signal poles that we've identified that are starting to be a little bit compromised that we're keeping an eye on. So that, and I think we have a separate project for that. I think it's traffic signal upgrades is what we have that up here. Let me see if I can find that there. I think we have a, signal equipment upgrade replacement is what that's identified for. That's for if there's a certain part of a signal that's a single pole or a mast arm or something that we use. That's why we have that as a tier 1, because we have identified those couple signals that do need some work. But the replacement is more to replace the entire intersection. If we were to do all four of the poles plus the controller and everything, that's what that money would be for. And we don't have any signals identified yet. It's more for kind of a future planning is what that would be for if we do want to get into a signal replacement program and come up with a kind of a scheduled list of replacements there. And that's something we're looking at with our, we've started into the asset management study of the different signals and kind of the troubles we've been having with them and the life cycle and things to kind of get an idea of, how much replacement would need to be done, how soon. So that's kind of why we put that on the tier 2, that we're still gathering data on that to make sure we understand how much is out there and how much it's going to cost to get that done. So it's, I think we requested $750,000 in 2024. That gives us next year to kind of put together some data there and make sure we have a good understanding of that cost.
Okay, thanks.
Patrick, do you mind if I jump in or just ask a question?
Yes, please. By all
So,
means.
and Tim, just correct me if I'm wrong here, but part of the reason, like if we look at the trail segment 2 and segment 3, the reason why they're tier 2 is probably because they're not ready to go yet, right? It's like it may be something that we may be looking to do in 2024 or 2025, but part of the reason it has to do with the fact that we're just waiting for a little bit more work to happen in the area before those take precedence, right?
That's correct, exactly. Yeah, we're even if we identify that funding for next year, we wouldn't be able to spend it next year. It's like the mayor said there, it's a little more planning involved in that. And we are trying to look for some potential grant opportunities for the rail trail as well. We're thinking of doing some, maybe 30% level plans that can help us to maybe qualify for a grant a little bit better, kind of show more of a plan and a cost estimate. It's always easier to get a grant when you have a bit of a kind of a start on the design and a good, really good cost estimate. So the grant opportunities, they know that it's a feasible project and there's enough money to fund it and you're asking for enough. So that's, those are out in the future a little more, is why we have put those as a kind of a tier 2 there. They're a little little longer lead time on those.
And are some of the ones in tier one, are they just regular annual projects like alley maintenance, or that are, you're gonna need to do them every single year?
Exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly why we've done those. Those are annual projects that we do, and that they're needed for maintenance and just upkeep of the system there. So a lot of those are just annual things that we just have to get done to keep our system operating where we want it to. And yeah, so that's kind of how those are prioritized. A lot of that annual stuff is things that we just need to get done.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've done some analysis already, but are there any that within on your team or your group that you've had discussions on tier two versus tier one that you're kind of questioning or considering? Because I mean, this looks good to me, but I can't say I have great input or feedback.
Yeah, so a lot of it, we did take a pretty hard look at this year to make sure, if the stuff is funded, we want to make sure we have the staff and availability to actually get all this stuff done, because obviously we don't want to budget something that we can't complete in the year we budgeted. So these are prioritized. A lot of it is based on those annual projects and the things that we know we need to get done, and we have the staff to do it and the experience to get it done. So we definitely prioritize those over the tier two that are maybe a little longer lead time things that we need a little more time to study and prepare for them.
I bet staffing issues is a big concern too, right? Yeah.
Right, it is, yeah, and that's what we definitely want to make sure we right size. We don't want to, request a bunch of stuff and it gets funded and then find out, we don't have the staff to complete it all. So that's definitely want to make sure what we request is what we can get done with the staffing levels we have right now.
Okay.
I have a question regarding the prioritizing the Old Hampton that we talked about at our last meeting, the streets from Lafayette to Broadway. And I think I saw in another document, it was bumped from tier two to a tier one. And then I see some of studying the Broadway corridor. And I think on the next tier, it talks a little bit about chunks of Broadway and trying to revitalize that. And I'm just curious, why was Hampton prioritized over kind of a broad sweep of Broadway, since that's been a major focus for the city over the last few years?
Sure, I can answer that. So the reason we did Old Hampton it's mainly because of the utility work that's needed in Old Hampton. It started with the storm sewer that we know needs to be replaced, and then the water and sanitary sewer as well, both need to be replaced in that street. So the idea is, by the time we get done replacing all those utilities, that street's going to be pretty well torn up. So it's an opportunity to reimagine that street a little bit, maybe move the curb and gutter around, and then get some wider sidewalks and stuff in there. So we thought that's a good opportunity to kind of combine those two efforts into one project to get all the utilities replaced and replace the cross section on the surface there at the same time. So that's why we moved that one up there to kind of combine that into one with the utility work.
That makes sense. So Broadway, I would imagine, is still kind of a priority for the city in terms of growth and businesses and that sort of thing. It was just this opportunity came up, and so why not do it while you're tearing it up?
It is, and yeah, we are looking at Broadway between Bellevue and 285. There's an application for a transportation improvement project grant this year, so we are looking at putting in an application for Broadway for another complete street type of concept there for Broadway on the south of 285 there. So that is something we're going to go after the grant on that and see if we can't get a grant for that piece and be able to do some upgrades to the similar to Old Hampton there. So we're looking at both of those actually. The Old Hampton is just more urgent because of the utility work that's already funded on that.
Okay, thanks. Well, does anybody else have any comments or questions regarding the capital improvement budget project? If not, okay. I guess we can move on to the next topic, which is meetings time limitation.
I think we need to get some priorities on the projects. If you could, you need to kind of go through it, I think, and prioritize what your top projects for funding would be, just to make sure we can get that feedback to city council so they can use that to help make their decision. All right. I guess the thought is, or any of the, I think maybe the thought of safe route to school, moving that to a tier 1. I think that's a valid concern there to have that money available. I was just looking in the current public improvement fund. It doesn't look like we have any carryover money for the safe route to school stuff. So right now we don't have funding for that we can use. So I think that might be a good thing to have that money in there that we can use for the safe route to school grants if we can find something on that.
Is that because you're seeing a lot of kids? I work in the schools, so I'm just curious if you've seen a lot of kids walk to school, because I sure don't. And I think we have a bigger problem with how the adults park and drive around our schools than we do the kids getting to school. But I'm just curious if like data has shown that kids are walking and biking more to school, or that they would if there were these improvements.
Yeah, I definitely think it would encourage you more. It'd obviously make it a lot safer, I think. So that's why we look at those in the grant, they award the grants based on need, and then the importance of, if there's a identified problem or something. And that's why right now we don't have necessarily any items in mind, I guess, that they're an issue that's come to our attention, but there is the opportunity there to get that funding, and we'd like to make sure we have potential matching money if it does, the opportunity presents itself, but we don't have anything identified right now. So, and that's, I think, why we kind of had it as a tier 2, because we don't really have any priority locations that we're looking for that, but it's not to say that there won't be some come up that we may need to match money for that.
Does
Hey,
the,
Tim,
go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, Patrick, sorry for jumping in there. Tim, was the
Please.
last major safe to schools one Mansfield and Broadway?
Yeah, you're right. Exactly. I think that might be, that's the only one I'm aware of anyway. I don't know if there's been any before that, but you're right. The Mansfield and Broadway was the last time that funding came into play for getting across Broadway there.
Okay. And for the tier 1, does the total amount budgeted, does that equal the summary of tier 1 or summation?
No, the summary will be different. These are just the transportation and traffic related projects here. So the total funding is different there. That'd be the previous spreadsheet there shows for all the different tier 1s. These are just the focusing on transportation and traffic for this committee here. That's kind of the focus for
Yeah.
obviously, this committee. If it was up to this committee, you'd probably want to fund just transportation traffic all the way. This is this committee.
Yep.
To prioritize that and say, yeah, it should all be traffic related stuff. So that's why we want to give kind of your top ones here. Then city council could kind of filter that in with the other priorities for the other departments and the other committees and things. We've obviously got the Parks Committee and all the other different planning and zoning that are going to weigh in as well. So we wanted to at least prioritize the transportation projects for city council so they can consider that with the overall decision.
So I'm kind of curious. I think Patrick asked a question earlier about like which ones are just, or someone asked a question earlier about which ones are just required kind of maintenance type of things. And I think, I think that those should probably be the highest. In my opinion, I think those should probably be categorized the highest. We can talk a little more, I guess, about what goes up and down too. But I do like the idea of maybe moving up. We talked about streetlights and furniture replacement, and then there's the Broadway safety improvements. And so I think that, if we could prioritize something there, that would, help out with that area quite a bit. I personally think those would be nice. I don't know if they could be complementary, but moved up. A question for Mr. Sierra, as far as what our committee and what this recommendation will look like coming to you guys and how you're going to use it. What can we do as far as prioritizing or knowing what's reasonable to move up and down to help you guys out the most?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and the reason why I say that is that unfortunately we have to make some. We don't have the budget to do everything that we want to do, and so yeah, as a council member, we have to look at the entire capital projects and just try to identify what it is that we need to do for this coming year. And so, if there's something that's really important to the ETAC committee in terms of what it is that we need to fund. You know, one, obviously just providing that prioritization today would helps, but also the reasoning behind it. So it's got to be, I would say it has to be pretty concrete, because we are looking across capital projects across the entire city that may not just be transportation related. And so at the very least, it'll give us something to think about. I think last year we did a similar exercise, and I can't recall if something got bumped up or bumped out because of just the recommendations of the 3 or 4 committees that looked at them. So it definitely goes into account the fact that we have, you know, more eyes on the budget, and so it gives us at least something to think about.
I have a comment too. I notice 2 at least, tier 1 road and bridge repairs. Do they are they referring to the bridge across Hamden? And if so, isn't that a separate project that's going to be replaced anyway, and that's coming soon? So are these?
Yeah, so I can explain. So the road and bridge fund, that's actually what we pay for the materials for street maintenance, for all the road base and the rock and
Okay.
the asphalt patching material comes out of that budget there. So that is kind of one of those that we need that funding just for the materials to maintain the streets, is what the road and bridge is there. And bridge repairs is actually, it's not for the 285 Broadway. That's obviously that's funded by a different account. That's a lot more than 300,000. But bridge repairs is more for just spot repairs on the bridges. We get a report every 2 years of the condition of all of the bridges in the city, and then we use that funding to make repairs for the priorities. A lot of them, there's corrosion or some kind of deterioration that we need to take care of. So that's why we put that funding as a tier 1 this year, because we don't have any more of that funding. We used it all up last year. There's no carryover in the bridge repairs anymore, so we needed to get a replenishment on that. We just got the new bridge reports in, and there are 2 or 3 bridges that we do need to pay some attention to. So that's why we put that in there as a tier 1 to see if we can get that funding to go ahead and make those repairs before they get any worse.
Well, I think the Old Hampton Complete Street one, I mean, I feel like we got to do that just because of the other things that are going on over in that area. It would be silly for us to not try to make that as good as we can when we have an opportunity like this for something like that. So I think that one would be very high on my list. The walk and wheel implementation as well is high on my list. Just a couple of things that I think that we should recommend. That walk and wheel is part of a broader plan that we've been working on for a while, and I would really like to see a little progress with that, and that can feed into some of the other things when we talk about safe routes to schools and some of those other things. It all ties together, and I would love to see, you know, another piece of that come along. I've got some other opinions, but I'd love to hear what the other members think too.
Well, the second to last one on tier 2 rail trail segment 2, Oxford Station. Not sure exactly what it entails, but I know they're also doing a bridge over Oxford, right by like a walking bridge. Would that be also a good opportune time to enhance? I'm assuming that means the Platte River Trail as it comes up to Oxford by that bridge. So
Yeah,
not sure what
that
that
is the
entails.
segment just north of the light rail station. There is what that would be.
Yep.
Kind of the middle section, I guess. We kind of broke it down into 3 different sections: the south and central and north. So the rail trail 2, that's kind of the middle piece there was what that is. So that's and that is one we don't really have a full concept of that yet, is why we didn't recommend that to go just yet. I think we have the money recommended in 24 or 25 for that to
Okay.
just a little time to put together a concept plan and see if we can't maybe get some grant funding, and if not, then that'll definitely come up as a higher priority in the future years.
That makes sense. Okay.
Hey, Patrick, thanks for asking that. Tim, quick question. I'm trying to think of the name of that study where it's Santa Fe from Alameda all the way down to C470. What's the name of that? The Pell?
Yeah, planning and environmental linkage, I think, like that is what it's called. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, but that's one of the recommendations as part of that, right? That's a high level item that the 5 or 6 cities that are involved in that study are they're prioritizing that linkage between Platte and Oxford.
Well, so I think their priority is to get a bridge across Santa Fe is what they're looking at, somewhere in the vicinity of Hamden there, I think is what kind of their highest priority was, is to get some way to get across Santa Fe, not having the surface cross or whatever. I think that was one of their recommendations. And I think it's actually closer to the light rail station itself. They want to try to get a bridge from, I guess, the old drive-in theater there across Santa Fe to the light rail station was one of the thoughts there. So that was one of their priorities there. So it's more the east-west connection they were looking at to be the, and I think they've actually applied for that TIF application for that to see if they can get some funding for that. So that's something that could come into play here fairly soon. But the other issue with that rail trail segment 2 is the redevelopment of the Civic Center area. There's some discussion about where the bridge across Hamden wants to go. You know, if does it want to be right up against Santa Fe, or maybe scoot it down a little closer to Jason or Inca there. That's still some discussion about how that's all going to line up through the redeveloped Civic Center area. So that's another reason to kind of push that out a little bit until we understand a little better how that's all going to redevelop and how that wants to connect into the rail trail. The conversation I was involved in, it was actually a good point. If you put the rail trail clear over by Santa Fe there, it kind of goes around the outside of the city there, and the pedestrians and stuff don't walk through the city, and they won't see all the businesses and things, and they'll just kind of pass right on through without experiencing all the amenities there, especially when it gets redeveloped. So the thought is maybe to try to direct the rail trail a little more through the center of the Civic Center area there, just to get people a little more connected to what's going on in Englewood there. So that was an interesting thought I hadn't thought of, but it is true that you don't want the rail trail just to be a pass through. You know, it'd be nice for people to stop by and enjoy some of the things that Englewood has to offer there. So that was the thought there.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
So yeah, that got us rethinking that bridge a little bit, where it needs to go. So we definitely need to coordinate with that redevelopment a little bit there to make sure we do it right. So if you want, I can highlight all the ones that are kind of annual maintenance projects there to kind of knock those off, and so you guys kind of can see the ones that we do every year and what the funding is needed for just annual maintenance there, and then we can look at the rest and decide if there's others you want to add to the priority list. I know the alley maintenance here, that's one we definitely need to keep that going each year. That's money we use to keep that V channel going down the alleys there and make sure we can get the drainage to work right. That's funding it's very important to make sure we can maintain the alleys, because we spend all the money getting that V channel in there. We want to make sure we can maintain them. So that's what that's for. So that's definitely one that we use each year that's important. You know, the pavement maintenance by area, that's our annual mill and overlay project. That's where we repave the streets with that funding. So we put $3 million as a request in there. We're not sure that's the budget will allow for that much for that project, but we definitely need to have money in there each year. That's what we use to pave the streets. So we'll want to have some funding in there for that for sure, if we can. Let's see here, I'll start that one. So the Dartmouth Reconstruct west of Santa Fe, that is more of an optional one. That's the piece between, basically between Santa Fe and where we're going to rebuild the Dartmouth Bridge over the Platte River there. There's that section of road that's not part of the grant. So that was that funding to try to get some money to pave that section of the road. And then the, let's see, road and bridge, that's those materials there that we use every year. That's an important one. Whoops. And then we've got, Broadway corridor study. That's another one. It's a new one this year, but we do have, that's another grant project with the City of Littleton to kind of look at the Broadway corridor and how we can maybe utilize that for different types of different modes of transportation. So that's something that $50,000 is needed to be the city's share of that participation in that study. That's part of a bigger initiative. So that would be one that's pretty important. Transportation system upgrade. That's more for the signage and striping upgrades that we do each year, kind of replace the crosswalk striping and all the bike lane striping and that. That's one that we use to keep all that fresh and looking new. So that's kind of an important one to use. So, and then the concrete utility city share, that's an important one for our concrete replacement project we do every year. That's why that's on there as a tier 1. And let's see, and then signal equipment upgrade replacement, that's our, as I said before, kind of what we use to replace any failing signal equipment around the city. So that's an important one as well. But now you're starting to see why these are all tier 1 projects we recommended here. These are things that we just year in, year out, we need to do these things to maintain the system we have. So the accessible ramps, that's we did put in a little bit more budget this year for those ramps because they are going up a little bit in price here. This past year they were a little more costly than we in the past. So I think we usually put 250. We asked for 350 this year just to make sure we can still do the same number of ramps. So this Union Avenue Bridge, that is a new one we put in. That was something that came out of those recent bridge reports. The Union Avenue Bridge over the Platte River there, west of Santa Fe. That bridge, the deck on the bridge is starting to fail. So that's why we put the money in there for that, because that deck is going to need replacement sooner than later. So the 400 is kind of to get the design going. And I think we have about $1 million in 2024 for that to get the actual deck replaced on that bridge, because that is, that's subject to all the trash trucks and the concrete trucks down there. It's starting to take its toll on that bridge. So we put some money in there for that, because that's becoming starting to stand out as something that needs to be done sooner than later. And then the Santa Fe one, we need that. This is our grant match for the Santa Fe, the one the mayor was talking about. That's our share of the grant funding for that, and to be able to participate in those projects with the other cities up and down Santa Fe there. And the Old Hamden project, that is one that we are going to apply for a grant on that. So we may not need that full amount, but we do know that if we want to be able to do that complete streets, if we don't get the grant, we're going to need funding to do that, because there's no funding identified yet. We've got, I think, 300,000 identified for the kind of the preliminary design for that to help us apply for the grant. So if we don't get the grant, we won't be able to move forward on that project. There's no other funding identified right now. And then the sidewalk gap, that's another optional one. We've got the list of sidewalk gaps now we put together, and we've got a pretty good understanding of where they are. And that's funding to get going on that program to start filling in all the gaps around the city. So that's another optional one. We just thought that'd be a good one to get some things started. And then bridge repairs I talked about before, that's one that's pretty important. That takes care of all the known bridge deterioration around the city, so we can keep up with that. So that's, I guess that leaves 2 or 3 there that are potential options, I guess, if you want to move them down to tier 2 or move a couple of those tier 2s to tier 1. But there's no magic number. We can have as many tier 1s as you want, but it'd be good, I think, to at least prioritize the ones that you guys feel are ones that should receive some funding in the budget.
Can I just clarify, Tim, are you hoping for like a recommendation from us that this is the, like what I guess we think that this is a great prioritization? And if so, are we allowed to do that without quorum, or do we have quorum?
I think this is a feedback at this point. So I think it's just to get the committee's feedback. I'm not, as far as the quorum and stuff, we'd have to figure out if it needs to be an official vote or anything. But I think just getting the feedback now is what we're interested in getting, so we can share that with City Council, what the committee recommends. But it would be nice to get I think that's the request, was to get each committee's prioritization of what you feel is important, and like the mayor said, why you feel it's important, so they can hope to understand the priorities for all the different requests here, and make some decisions on what to spend the money on. So yeah, I don't know if we have to go 1 through 10 or whatever. If you want to just, I guess it'd probably be good though to kind of have a somewhat of your top 10 or whatever, just to know that these are the ones that the Transportation Advisory Committee recommends as things that are important to be done for the transportation system in the city. And I think these amounts can change as well, right? Where, like I said, the pavement maintenance priority, the $3 million, I'm not sure we can support that right now with I think there's only $8 million total available. That may be a little much for that, but I think it's more at this point just the which projects you think should receive funding are important to get funding to keep them going each year.
Or the other way that I could think of doing this, Tim, is just saying if there are some from tier 2 that we want to move up, what would we remove from tier 1?
That's a good way to
that's
do
another way that I would look at it as a city council, or at least for me. What are we prioritizing in tier 1 that this committee doesn't agree with.
That's a good way to put it. I agree. I think that's a good idea there. It's really good if you want to put everything in tier one that you think, and then that helps to understand the priorities.
But we want to turn them all green on the page here.
I know.
I want to do the same thing, Chris, but you know.
Yeah, that's not going to help narrow it down at all. That makes it even more broad. Like I say, yeah, technically, yeah, this committee, you probably want all of these things done. These are all the transportation related things. You want to just fund this stuff and don't worry about the other stuff. But yeah, I think the mayor's got a good idea there. If you guys have some tier twos that should move up and tier ones that should move down, I think that might be the best way. Maybe we just put together a list of tier one projects that the committee feels are important. That might be a good way to do it.
I mean, I think personally, I think it looks fine. I would prioritize Broadway, but understanding where you're coming from with the Hampton project, and I get where that's coming from. Other than that, I would say, you know, Broadway from Yale down and making sure that looks like such a beautiful place to be and draws people. That would be it. And this, I wouldn't move anything else. I mean, I trust that what the city is doing is based in data and research, and is hopefully like seeing where things are happening, and that's enough for me, I would hope. I think that alley paving should stay tier 3 and not be a priority right now, especially particularly seeing that the single hauler trash was not approved and isn't moving forward with that. Then if, you know, we're going to continue to have lots of trash trucks go down there, then let's just leave our alleys the way they are until we can make broad sweeping changes. But other than that, I think it looks good.
Yeah, I don't see any glaring changes either, just because I only see 5 in tier 1 that are not mandatory. Did you explain the third one, Dartmouth Avenue reconstruct?
Yeah, so what that is, that's the piece between Santa Fe and Platte River Drive there on Dartmouth, just west of Santa Fe there.
Yeah.
So we're getting close to bidding out the bridge replacement, the bridge widening there. We're gonna get the bridge widened out across the Platte River there on Dartmouth, and we're gonna redo the signals on both sides of that bridge and do a little bit of widening so we can have 4 lanes each, or 2 lanes each direction, 4 lanes total. So there's a little gap between that project and Santa Fe that we don't have funded right now. So that would be the money to go ahead and basically resurface all the way to Santa Fe, so we didn't have that gap that looked like old or whatever. It is pretty rough over there. That's another street that gets a lot of truck traffic. So there's probably 700-800 feet of road that needs paving there to tie all that together and make it look like one uniform project there. So the grant money it only gets us up to La Pan. So it's basically between La Pan and Santa Fe is that piece there. Is what that would fund to resurface that section.
Is the widening and making a dedicated lane both ways, is that kind of forward thinking as they redevelop that whole, what's it called? It used to be a Christian school. If you take Dartmouth west and then up north, Loretta Heights. So to have better access to that, or is that just different?
I know it's more just for the existing conditions there. The lanes are pretty tight there. The new standards for bridges and stuff, the lane widths and stuff are a lot better now. And then it's to help get left turn lanes in there on that bridge as well. Right now, it's kind of a tough area to navigate the way it's set up now. We just need about 1 more lane width of road there, and we can kind of clean it up and make it a little more.
Okay.
Kind of now it's like 1 lane to 2 lanes back to 1. It's just kind of an odd setup that kind of cleans it up and going across the bridge. So it's not necessarily for any known development, but just more for existing conditions to make that a lot better access across there.
Yeah, but there probably will be a lot more traffic once that development does go up, so that doesn't hurt having this area fixed.
Yeah, that's already a pretty busy area there, and it is probably not going to slow down for sure. So that is why we want to make sure we can get all that done while we can and be able to tie all that together.
Okay.
Janet, Patrick, are there any in the tier 1 section that you guys think should move down to the lower section? And to maybe tier 2?
I don't know.
So Tim, one way we could do this is obviously since this committee is really only looking at transportation items, I guess the recommendation from this committee could be if there is something that we deprioritize from the rest of the capital improvement projects, these are the 2 items from tier 2 that we would recommend move up.
It's a good way to do that too, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. If that's the case, I think the second one, the safe routes to school would be a good one.
The safe routes and the Broadway safety improvements, right?
Yeah.
So I see highlighted. Okay.
Yeah, those are the 2 there. Yeah, so the Broadway safety, that's more like isolated intersections that we can do some improvements to for pedestrians and bikes and stuff to make sure it's easier to get across Broadway at certain locations. So that's I think that's definitely a valid one there, especially for this committee. That's important to be able to get safely across Broadway there and make sure we can make it work for everybody.
Does that include, is that things like some of the bump outs that they've done that make the walking distance shorter, those types of things?
Yeah, that type of thing, and striping, and then maybe, you know, the kind of have the, you call it the paint post striping, where you kind of paint the bulb out and put some delineators out there just to kind of define it better for bikes and peds, to make it a little safer to get everybody through the intersection to get across Broadway there. So that type of thing, so that was fun.
Yeah, I think those have been really well received thus far, and I think we should continue doing those too. Yes, I'm glad that's where it is on there. A question I have, and there's probably not an easy answer to this, but because I haven't seen I haven't dove into the budgets of all the other committees and groups and things, and so I kind of feel like I'm missing this piece of, are there things on here that tie into maybe other projects that are prioritized that might make sense to do together? And I don't know, if that is already kind of baked into this list a little bit, or if there is a way for us to say, hey, if we're doing other things or other things are budgeted or prioritized, maybe, I don't know if there's a program. We've had programs in the past for businesses to get new signage out front. So maybe, on the Broadway corridor, if they're doing that, then maybe some of the seating and lighting would be a good complement to that, or encourage more use of those areas. But I would say, as a broad statement, I guess, and maybe this is just coming to Mrs. Sierra, if there are any, if as the discussions are going on that about things that might also be complementary to some of the items on our list, then I would also recommend, looking at, or the city council prioritizing some of those things in a complementary way. And I'm sure you guys will do that anyways, but just wanted to say that as a note.
Yeah, thanks for that, Chris. I think, I don't think there's any contingencies here for these items, but obviously we do take that into account when we are doing one thing. Well, I guess in a sense, the one that it would be complementary would be the Old Hampton, right? Because we do have a lot of items under, the enterprise funds for the utility work and all of that that's going on. But yeah, we definitely take that into account. Can't see any other ones that would fall under that though.
Yeah, if they were replacing a drainage line that just happened to run perpendicular to the train tracks, that would go in with the rail trail or something like that if they were working in that area. So, similar things, kind of like that Hampton project.
I'm not seeing any others either that would maybe tie into a different project. That's a very good point, though, as far as, if there's other things that kind of the synergy there, we can tie them all into one. But I think all these are, at least the tier 2 ones here anyway, are all kind of their own project there, and not really tied to any other utility work or anything I can think of right now that might come into play.
Yeah, I'm thinking about, we've got some bigger projects too, like city center update area that's going to be coming, and some, other rehabilitation between the Hampton and Broadway bridge as well. And, we're going to have some stuff coming up, but there's not much we want to spend too much on in that area with some of those things until we've got more of the broad plan in place with some of that stuff. In the top section, we have three items that don't have a number on them. Dartmouth, Santa Fe, sidewalk gaps, and Union Bridge rehabilitation. If I had to put a number on them, I would say sidewalk gaps, then Dartmouth, reconstruction, then Union Bridge. Just a thought. I'd like to provide some kind of direction since we're spending some time, and we appreciate you guys kind of talking through this. Tim, you're doing a great job. Thanks for answering all our questions. What else, Jen, Patrick? What do you guys think? Or different order? I'd like to provide.
Union Avenue was your second one there?
Yes.
Okay.
Or no, that was my last one. If I had to put
Dartmouth is 2.
Yeah, Dartmouth is 2.
Okay.
Well, although I do have a question on the Union Avenue Bridge. I know there's some commercial stuff, and that bridge has been sort of well, we're doing a lot of bridge work in Inglewood. That's sort of just that Union Avenue one? That's just some patching work on that kind of. Is there anything like structurally critical that's part of that might be like a safety issue?
So it is the deck on that bridge is what's failing right now. We're seeing some potholing on there. It's kind of what led us to look at that a little closer there. So it is starting to deteriorate there. We were able to fill in the potholes temporarily. Now it'll get us by for a year or two, but eventually that bridge is going to need a full deck replacement. That's going to be a pretty big undertaking. So the funding for next year is more just to get the design started and get ready to undertake the whole bridge deck replacement. That's probably going to be around $1 million for the actual work. So the 400 gets the design going and getting us ready to for 2024 to actually do the work. So that's why we wanted to identify that this year. That's something that we our bridge report showed. That thing is next to the Dartmouth over Platte River there that we're going to be doing. That this Union Bridge is our next worst bridge that needs some work on it. So that's why we put that money as a tier 1 to identify that as something that needs to happen sooner than later to make sure it doesn't get any worse. Right now it's just the deck. It doesn't look like any structural underlayment or anything, or any of the beams or anything are failing, but that deck is becoming an issue there that's going to keep getting worse unless we do something about it. Yeah, so did you all want to maybe prioritize the ones that don't have stars on them and see if there's a consensus on the top ones that aren't annual projects maybe that might need funding for next year? Or do y'all agree with the other ranking here? I guess we've got the walk and wheel implementation as well. Is that something you want to rank a little higher or anything, or make that a top 3 or 5 or whatever? We'll take those off of there. And the ones that don't have a star, if you maybe want to rank those, that might help to kind of see the ones that aren't currently funded that you guys think would be the ones to get funding there, that if there's funding available to get those into the budget.
I liked how it was on there with the walk and wheel number 1 and the Old Hampton number 2, and then sidewalks number 3.
And Dartmouth and Union.
Yeah.
For me, I agree with that. That's exactly how I would vote too. But
And then on the bottom with those other 2 items. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, my dog's over here barking. Sorry.
On the bottom between the traffic calming and the Broadway safety, what do you guys think? Which one of those, if we had to say what's next, if we could squeeze one more in the top, which one would you say?
Broadway, I would pick.
5 and then a 6 for safer after school. So does that cover all of them then? Do we have either a star or a number by each one there to kind of identify the ranking?
Yeah.
Got it all there?
Yeah, line 18, can you make that a 5?
Oh yeah, that's the 5 there. I was gonna say, it looks like I'm missing one here. So that's a 5,
And then,
Well,
6 and 7 then. 6 and
Yeah.
my
7.
thing is it's a little difficult for me to rank because there's certain ones that I like more because they're more cosmetic and so on. But like number 4 and 5, those are things that I think do need to get done, fix the bridge and road, but it's not as like fun, if you will, as not fun, but so I like the way this looks.
Yeah, those two are definitely the necessity ones there. Like you said, those are ones that you don't have a lot of choice there. Those are things that are,
Yeah,
they're starting to
needed.
talk to us there and tell us they need some help.
Yep.
yeah, and I think, if there was a way, maybe not depending on how the prioritization goes, I think the Broadway safety improvements for me, it doesn't have a budget number associated with it right now, but I would love to say, if we can do 1 or 2 more intersections, even just a couple of them, and just start chipping away at them, I think that would start making a difference. And so maybe that one doesn't have to be a massively funded number, but maybe that one can be a smaller number to just do maybe another intersection or something. If there was something that maybe to your point, Patrick, some of these are big, expensive projects. Are there some little things that we can do that are going to make a difference? And some of those things I think last quite a while as well. The other streetlights and furniture replacement, while not a critical thing for transportation and safety necessarily, it's very nice in placemaking, and a little bit can go a long way sometimes. So if the city is looking at having a little bit of extra budget to spend on a couple of things, I think those would be nice smaller budget items that can maybe be included that can have a little visual impact. So and also functional.
Yeah.
And if you're looking at some of that Broadway safety improvements, that might tie into some of the walk and wheel implementation stuff. I'd have to look at the walk and wheel plan a little closer, but there might be some overlap there. If we could get some walk and wheel priorities done with some of the Broadway safety at the same time, that would help to kind of complete the bike network as well in the city.
And Tim, is line 26 and 29 related?
So no, actually the 26 there, the safe route to school thing, that's more about pedestrian movement on the getting to the schools, kind of around all the school areas there and making sure we have activity. And then the 29 is more the for traffic calming, the kind of looking at ways to maybe put some bulb outs and things to slow cars down a little bit and make sure they're obeying the speed limit a little bit better, make some structural changes to the road to slow down traffic a little bit is what that'd be for. But that the traffic calming program itself is actually more for coming up with a program of how to do that around the city and what's fair to how we would prioritize that and how we would do it. So we don't really have any kind of program now. If there's a complaint about speeding or something, we don't have like here's our program of how we're addressing that or anything. So it's more to study that and kind of understand what the needs are and how we could prioritize that to make any changes in that area.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be more of a study versus an actual construction at this point, so we'd understand what the needs are.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
And I don't see the skateboard park on here. I'm assuming that's a Parks and Rec budget line item. Is that right?
Yeah, that's part of the. I think that's in one of these other funds. Actually, I'd have to look and see here. I go to my other version. But
you don't have to. That's okay.
Prioritize a skate park. I knew somebody was going to ask that. It's like, where's all the other stuff? So I tried to just focus on transportation stuff.
No, I think this looks pretty good, and I hope we provided some valuable feedback. I appreciate the questions of the team too. Thank you guys. We're a team here together. Committee, right?
Go team.
Well, yeah, it's good to prioritize the ones that aren't things that we have to do, and the things that if there is funding, this is, I think it's a good list of things to consider.
Mhm.
And I imagine this is like a living budget and document, you know, as you get through the year, priorities might change or available staffing, right? So it's not set in stone.
Right. Yeah, and these dollar amounts too are going to fluctuate based on the overall budget available. You know,
Yeah.
I think the important thing now is just to identify the projects that do need funding, you know, and the maximum amount of funding they can get to keep moving on them. But like the pavement maintenance by area, that is the 3 million is what we need to maintain the current condition of the roads, and we're not quite there yet with that funding level. But we just put that dollar amount in there to show that's the need. That doesn't mean we have funding for it, but that would be the amount we would need to keep our pavement rating where it is now. So and these other dollar amounts are the kind of the ones with the stars for sure, the kind of the need as well. You know, this is the amount we spend each year just to maintain what we have already.
Okay.
All right, so there's any other tier twos or anything you wanted to rank or anything, put a number by? I guess we'll the way we'll share this is we'll do all the starred ones is things that we felt are needed no matter what, and then the numbered ones are kind of whatever additional funding is available. Those are kind of the committee's top priorities for any additional funding that might be available in the budget. Is that kind of how you want to look at that?
Yep.
Okay.
And I think it looks good. I don't have any other additional input.
So Mayor Sierra, does that look good to you? Does that give you some good feedback there? I appreciate you being here to kind of give us some guidance on what's most helpful to the city council.
Yeah, I'm realizing we kind of have to standardize this across all the boards and commissions that are looking at the budgets. So that's going to be a talking point that I have with the city staffing council. But yeah, that works for me.
We can have a budgeting 101 for committee members course or something.
Well, this is kind of like a learning process. We kind of changed the process this year after starting it last year. So yeah, still a work in progress.
So have you seen some of the other committees, how they're doing it? Or that's kind of the first time I've done something like this too. I'm curious, is there other ways other committees are looking at it differently, or?
No, they look at it very similar. Like the only one that I could think of that I've seen is the budget advisory committee. So, so they look at it very similarly.
Okay. Well, good. So we'll put this together then and get the recommendation in by June 9th there. So the city council has that to, I think is it in late June, I think is when city council considers all the recommendations. I think there's a meeting coming up in late June that'll share all these recommendations with them. So, yeah, well, great.
Thanks for all the hard work. You guys are doing so much to put this together behind the scenes, and we appreciate you coming to us for input on these things. And you know, hope our input adds a little value along the way as well.
No, I appreciate it as well. Like I say all the time, I really appreciate this committee and your feedback, because we want to make sure we're spending money on the stuff that's important to the residents and the people who live here. You know, there's certain things we don't want to be doing something that nobody's going to use or nobody thinks is important. It's nice to get this feedback so we understand what is important to the residents, and we make sure we're focused on the things that make the biggest difference to everybody. So I appreciate the feedback.
Thank you. Us too. Okay, so any other discussion on this topic before we move forward? No? Okay. Okay, then the next new business item is meetings time limitation. Was that brought to attention by someone on this meeting in this call?
I think it was Chair Knaddison last time brought up the thought of it. Do you want to have some kind of a time limit on the meetings there, that they end after 2 hours or something? There's a certain limitation on the amount of discussion that keeps going. So that was just a thought there. I don't think we have anything in the bylaws right now that says that there's the meetings will, each meeting is 2 hours, and if it takes longer than that, it'll be continued on to the next meeting or something. I think was the thought there, if there's any interest in doing that. And I'm not sure if any of the other committees have something like that or not. It's there, but that was just brought up at the last meeting. That might be something that the committee wants to consider.
Okay. Well, we can table it to next week when he's here to a bigger segment of our committee is here. So, I mean, I think informally we could try to, remind ourselves, that 2 hours is a reasonable limit, that, certain items can be tabled. I don't know if it needs to be officially documented in the bylaws or not, but
Yeah, and as the agenda is prepared, you can kind of get a sense. I just try to keep the agendas to a manageable amount there, so we're not here all night with too many items there. But it's we try to spread things out each month there, so they're not we're not doing everything all at the same time.
okay.
I think that's why we've had a few extra meetings here and there, just to kind of spread it out. So we're not, if we just have 4 meetings a year, sometimes the agenda gets pretty packed there, and it takes a while to get through everything. So it's nice to have these additional meetings when we need to catch up on things and not have everything be happening at once.
Yeah, Mayor Sierra, do a number of committees, just meet quarterly? Because that's how this, before my time, I heard that's how this was run. We meet.
No, most committees meet monthly.
Okay.
Planning and zoning meets every other week or twice a month, I guess I should say. And then there are some committees that meet quarterly.
Okay.
But yeah, it's mostly monthly.
Yeah, I think if this was Greg's topic, maybe he can bring it up. I don't really have any issues with this type of stuff. I also don't know if there's like legal implications or something of limiting the time. I don't think there is anything like that yet. But yeah, I don't really.
Just as an FYI, at least council, we will talk about, if we go past 10 o'clock, we talk amongst ourselves, or we basically ask whether or not we want to push any agenda items to another night. So that's 4 hours for us, and our minds stop working after 10 p.m. So it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, we had some meetings a few years ago when we were quarterly that were 3+ hours, and that was a long time. So I don't know if that was a holdover topic from that, but I feel like our meetings haven't really gone super long lately. But appreciate you guys paying attention to the time as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, this meeting here, we weren't sure this could go a little long. That's why I tried to focus the projects and stuff to kind of help us facilitate through this, just because otherwise that list is so long, it gets too challenging to go through every single one. So I'm glad this worked out a little bit better, that you could kind of see the priorities there and be able to rank them a little bit easier. So I'm glad this worked out.
Yeah, we appreciate you spending time after work to chat with us on this stuff too.
Sure. Yeah, like I said, I always appreciate this feedback. It's always good to know we're on the right track with what we're doing, and it's people are seeing the changes out there. I always appreciate your feedback when you see something happening out in the field there and you notice the change. It's good to be acknowledged there. A lot of times people don't realize that it takes a lot to get that stuff done there. It doesn't just happen by magic.
Yeah. A lot going on behind the scenes. For
Yep,
sure.
yeah, it takes a bit of time to get all that together, but it comes together. It's good to know we have the priorities right, so we spend the time where it needs to be spent. All right.
Yep. Okay. Next on the agenda is Director's Choice. Maria's not here today, so Tim, do you have anything you'd like
No,
to?
Maria didn't. Yeah, Maria didn't share anything with me that she wanted to bring
Right.
up this evening. I think it was mainly just this priority list here. I think that was our interest, was to get your feedback on that, and I appreciate all the time. So I don't think we had anything else to share this evening.
Okay. Great. And then the next item on the agenda is Chairperson's Choice. Chairman Knaddison is not here. I'm filling in, and I don't have anything pressing or no. So committee member Heller, do you have anything you'd like to discuss?
I don't. We are having our first block party June 4th. If any of you would like to come, we have rented the party trailer, and this is our 4th or 5th one, so we're getting pretty big.
Cool.
So we're on the 2700 block of South Sherman, and we're starting to branch out and allow Grant and Lincoln to come too. So if any of you would like to come, you're welcome to come, but that's all my news for today.
Exciting.
When is the block party?
It's June 4th from 4 to 8.
All right. Not to be
Alright.
confused with the Greater Englewood block party.
No, but I don't, we may get there someday. June 4th, 2700 block of Sherman. We've had bouncy houses. I think we might have a face painter this time, so.
Okay.
Silent disco, member Heller, didn't you guys have a silent disco last year?
We did. We have also had a silent disco. It wasn't so silent next to the bounce house, but those people with their headphones on were silent. And so yeah, that's true. We did have that.
And it would probably add a lot more clout if ETAC showed up in full force, right?
I think so. I mean,
I think so.
pretty heavy influencers in the city here, so.
Oh, that's great. I've been wanting to do that in my block too, but we'll see. Cool. Member Diedrich, would you like anything to share?
No additional items tonight. Thank you guys all.
Okay. How about Mayor Sierra? Any comments or?
Yeah, just a couple of items, and just talking to the influence of this committee, I guess I'll start with the good news. Obviously, you guys are probably all aware, but the safety stop is now state law. That was signed by Governor Polis a little bit over a month ago, if I remember correctly. But obviously, ETAC was one of the, passed it in order for city council to look at it. And we passed it back in December of 2020. So I think, speaking to the people involved, it sounded like Inglewood moving forward with the safety stop was very beneficial for this becoming state law, because we're part of the metro area. And obviously your influence, our influence kind of helped getting that passed. So I wanted to thank the members of the committee for getting that done. And then secondly, member Heller kind of alluded to it, but I just wanted to give you guys an update on the single hauler, which as you probably all know, did not move forward with city council. It's a little disappointing on my part. We worked very hard to get it in front of city council. And I can understand why it didn't make it through. I want to continue to explore the option, but the RFPs that we received back weren't very price competitive. We were looking at about $29 to $31 per household, which I did have an issue with, but I did feel that there were ways that we could possibly get some of the costs removed, but unfortunately, not every member of council saw it that way. So, but I do want to thank this committee for looking into that issue. It's off the table for right now. It doesn't mean it won't come back in the near future. I think COVID and just the cost and inflation kind of played a role in this, but I still think it's a worthwhile endeavor for us to look into at some point into the future. But at this point, it is no longer one of the items that we're looking at. So.
Yep.
And that is it for me tonight.
Yeah, that was unfortunate, but it was interesting because the original RFPs and presentations that we received when this first kicked off were way different than what really came to fruition. So
right,
that's too bad. Oh well.
We appreciate the support the city had on that initiative as well. Between some of the surveys and the citizens committee, I know there was some city staff as well helped out quite a bit with that along the way, and it's been several years in the making to get to that too. So I think it was good that we took a good hard look at it though.
Yep.
Yeah, like you said, it doesn't mean it can't be revisited in the future, but I understand. Okay, so does anybody else have anything else? That's pretty much the final agenda item topic. No, all right. Well, with that, we can adjourn this meeting and hope everyone has a good afternoon, evening, and good rest of your week.
Good seeing everyone. Have a good night, y'all.
So, okay.
Thanks everybody.
Bye, everybody.